Hi everyone, I'm Daniel at QNAP and I'm here to talk about how a QNAP NAS can improve your video editing experience. Today we're going to talk about what editors need for storage, challenges editors face, how a NAS helps with those challenges, how to choose the optimal NAS configuration for your specific needs, and how to choose the right NAS for your specific needs. So most video editors need high performance and the ability to collaborate with other video editors. High performance is important because editing 4K raw footage can require a lot of bandwidth. And if you want to have multiple simultaneous 4K video editors, you need even more bandwidth. Also, the IOPS requirements goes up when you have multiple simultaneous video editors. For collaboration, since a lot of projects are large projects, maybe big productions, there might be multiple different editors that work together. And if all the editors can access the same raw footage at the same time, that can be really helpful. But traditionally, this was a challenge for editors. And that's because in the past, NAS wasn't fast enough to be very good for video editing. So a lot of editors would choose DAS. And DAS had good performance, but the issue was that on a DAS, typically only one editor could access the same footage at the same time. And so if you had multiple editors, perhaps they'd take turns editing a raw file, or they'd edit different versions of the file, but that could cause some challenges. But the choice they had to make at that time was that they could either get a DAS, which had good performance, but not so good for collaboration, or they could get a NAS that was good for collaboration, but not so good for performance. But you're not stuck with that choice anymore because NAS has gotten a lot faster. And NAS is excellent for collaboration, and one of the reasons for that is NAS use network drives. And network drives can be mapped on many different computers or workstations at the same time. So if you look at this picture here, you can see all these Windows PCs and Macs, and even people through the internet can all access the same file at the same time. So that can allow for really good, really convenient collaboration. And then when the NAS is fast enough, this can allow for a very efficient, very convenient collaboration environment for video editors. So in this picture, all the raw footage is put on the NAS. And then from the NAS, all of the editors can access and just work directly off the NAS for editing. You can also sync this NAS to another NAS in another location. Then all the editors over there can edit off that NAS. You can also sync or back up to the cloud for just added protection. So the NAS really makes things very convenient and just very helpful when the NAS is fast enough. And so that's the key, is for the NAS to be fast enough. And the speed of NAS has been catching up to DAS, and in some cases the speed of NAS even surpasses the speed of DAS. And some reasons for this are that NAS are now available with much more powerful CPUs than you could get for a NAS in the past. QNAP NAS can have 10 gigabit Ethernet. We're about to come out with 25 gigabit Ethernet. We have Thunderbolt options, and we have 40 gigabit options available as well. Our QNAP NAS support NVMe SSDs, which is the faster kind of SSD, and we have SSD over provisioning, which further increases the performance of SSDs. And we have some excellent caching features, so you can effectively use SSDs to boost your performance. So there are two main ways to connect to a QNAP NAS at high speed. You can connect to a QNAP NAS through high-speed Ethernet, whether it be 10G, 25G, 40G, and you can connect to a NAS through Thunderbolt. And we wanted to have that second Thunderbolt option because some of the challenges that some people had when switching to using a NAS is that not all workstations have high-speed Ethernet. So one of the ways we've addressed these challenges is we did come out with a very affordable 10G card. QXG 10G1T, just $89, can go into a NAS or a PC workstation. So you could give your workstation 10 gigabit. But some people still had an issue, and that's because not all editing workstations can take a 10G card. In fact, most laptops cannot take a 10G card. So we came out with Thunderbolt NAS, and that way if your workstation has Thunderbolt, you can directly connect to a NAS through Thunderbolt. We've also come out with the QNAP T3 cards, and this can convert a Thunderbolt port to a 10G port. And that way, you don't even need a Thunderbolt NAS. You can connect your workstation directly to a 10G NAS at 10G speeds and just use your Thunderbolt port and convert that to a 10G port. And we just wanted to have these multiple different ways to connect to a NAS at high speed so that as many different workstations can have a high-speed connection to a NAS as possible. And we've also come out with a very affordable 10G switch, one of the most affordable switches on the market, under $600, just so that you can upgrade your network to 10G. And when you have that 10G connection, the NAS is excellent for video editing. But technology keeps improving, so we ought to improve with it. So we're not just going to stay at 10G, but we have 40G options, and we're about to come out with 25G as well. And what more speed can offer you is the ability to have more simultaneous editors. So some of the big, blockbuster movies out there have been very large productions. And with large productions, you might have more editors. So it can be helpful to have more simultaneous editors that can edit at once. So with more throughput, you can have even more editors at the same time. Also, a growing number of editors are switching to 8K editing. And when the NAS has more throughput, it becomes a better option for 8K video editing. So if you decide that you want to use a NAS to just have better collaboration, you might want to ask, well, how do I choose the right NAS? And there's two things you could think about in the beginning. How much throughput do you want? And how much capacity do you need? So just 1 hour of 4K raw footage can take more than 100 gigabytes of storage. And typically there's a lot of raw footage being taken that just keeps being put on a NAS and accumulates over time. So the ability to have a lot of capacity can be good. And also you can ask how much throughput do you need? And it's kind of a general rule of thumb. It's good to have about 300 to 500 megabytes per second per simultaneous 4K video editor. So if you want to be able to have, let's say, 3 simultaneous 4K video editors, it might be good to have a NAS that can do about 900 to 1500 megabytes per second. And then you can choose a NAS and drive configuration to achieve the bandwidth that you need. And I say drive configuration as well, because that also affects performance, which I'll get into. So what are the factors that affect throughput? Well, one is the CPU of the NAS. So a more powerful CPU allows for more throughput and higher IOPS. What kind of connection matters? Is it 10G, Thunderbolt, 25G, 40G? And the speed of your drive matters because a NAS cannot be faster than the drives in it. And also number of drives matters. And that's because you're typically uploading and downloading to all the drives at the same time. So you're not limited by the speed of just one drive, but it's the speed of the RAID group of drives that would limit your performance. Also, something that matters is to what degree is it mostly just sequential reads and writes that you need to do, or is there a significant amount of random reads and writes? And this question can affect how you choose to set up your NAS, and that's because SSDs are a lot better at the random reads and writes. So if you have more random I/O requirements, you might use some SSDs. And so if you don't know how to know if there's a significant amount of random reads and writes required, as a general rule, when you have more simultaneous editors at the same time, you tend to have more intensive I/O. So in general, with more drives, you can have more sequential performance. So for example, 8 HDDs, RAID 5 or RAID 6 should have enough sequential speed for about 2 simultaneous 4K video editors. But when you add more drives, you typically don't get much more random performance. So if you need to have higher random I/O requirements, it's good to have some SSD cache. So there's two main ways to use cache. One way is you can have the cache handle your random reads and random writes because SSDs are orders of magnitude better than HDDs for the random reads and random writes. And then you can have your HDDs still handle your sequential reads and writes. And that's the more affordable way, and that's probably the most common way. Your other option is you can have your cache handle both random and sequential. But I have just some cautions before you choose to do that, which is that we would not recommend that second option unless the sequential performance of your cache is faster than the sequential performance of your HDD RAID group. And remember I said that with more drives, you get more sequential performance. So let's say hypothetically you had 8 HDDs, but only 2 SSDs. Well, because with more drives you get more sequential performance, you might actually find that the sequential performance of 8 HDDs might be more than the sequential performance of 2 SATA SSDs. So in this case, if you try to cache sequentially, you might actually even slow yourself down. So if you want to cache both random and sequential, I'd say for SATA SSDs, a minimum of 4 SSDs, so that the sequential performance of your SSDs is more than your HDDs. Alternatively, you could use NVMe cache. The NVMe cache can be very fast. Other thing to consider is that sequential reads and writes tend to involve more data, so your cache fills up faster and you need more cache. So for the second option of caching everything, you need either more SSDs or faster SSDs, and you need a larger cache size. So this is the more expensive option, but in some cases it still might be worth it. So once you decide how you want to configure your NAS for your needs, how do you choose the right NAS? Well, one thing you might ask yourself is, do you want to be able to use Thunderbolt or not? Or do you just want to use high-speed Ethernet? If you just want high-speed Ethernet, we have some excellent options for our rack mounts. TDS16489U has 2 Xeon E5s, very fast throughput. We're just releasing our TS83XU series, should have very fast throughput, very fast IOPS, excellent NAS. And our TBS X72XU series also should have very fast throughput, a little bit less than the 83 series, but still very good and at a very good price point. And our X77XU series is also very good throughput and a good price. And one of the advantages that our rack mounts have, besides being available with good CPUs, is that they can have a lot of drives. And so that can allow for a lot of storage. They're also very good for expanding. You can add on these up to 8 16-bay expansion units, so they're very good for lots of storage, but also with more drives in a NAS, that can often allow for even more throughput. And so that could be helpful. But we do have some good tower models as well. We have our TS1685, which has a Xeon D CPU, and our TS1677X, which has a Ryzen CPU. So all of these are really good options. And alternatively, you could choose to get a Thunderbolt NAS. So the TS4533BT3 is great for 2K video editing. And then if you want to have multiple simultaneous 4K video editors, I'd get one of these two NAS here. What's nice about the 1282T3 is it has 4 Thunderbolt ports, 2 10G ports, and the 72XT series has 2 Thunderbolt ports and 1 10G port. So if you want to have more simultaneous Thunderbolt connections, or you want to aggregate maybe 2 10G ports into your switch for some faster network performance, the 1282T3 is great. But if you don't need that many ports, I would say that the performance of both of these NAS is excellent. And the 72XT series has an excellent price point. The 8-bay is about $1,900. So either of these NAS really are excellent, and I highly recommend these options. And then whether it be Thunderbolt or 10G or 40G, we have many different options for a NAS to be very good for video editing. So I hope that helps. I'm going to stay here to answer some questions. And I think the NAS can really improve your editing environment. But if you have any more questions, please ask. I'll be here for a little bit. Thank you.